Well, welcome back. Let's now continue this conversation further. I'm now being joined on the program by oil and gas analyst Bala Zaka. Thank you so much for joining me on the program. So let me start by asking you, this particular situation of oil theft has created a lot of narrative about how these breaches are actually made and all of that. So my first question is, how exactly does this thing work? Is it that easy to steal oil from this country?
Not exactly, but you see, when you talk about criminality is criminality. No matter how you try to safeguard something now, when you're talking about criminal, when you're talking about the evil mind will always look for ways around it. If you travel to other parts of the world, pipelines are on surface. Pipeline crisscross different areas, so it's not different. I mean, remember when we talk about the crude oil and gas, we're talking about a global industry here, and we're talking about an international commodity here, and you're also talking about people crisscrossing, people of different race, people of different cultural backgrounds, and even intellectual backgrounds. So to that extent, the principle and the practice of crude oil and gas is the same. But the kind of criminality you're seeing in Nigeria is not something that is common across oil and gas nations, whether they are OPEC members or non-OPEC members. It's just criminality, sir, and it has to be stamped out.
It just beats me. A situation where all thieves, they actually pass a 4-kilometer pipe underwater to connect to the sea, to siphon this crude oil. I mean, the fact that this illegal bunkering, it's passing our security personnel by, the Navy, the Air Force, and the fact that there's even satellite tracking. How do these people manage to do all of this undetected for this long?
Thank you for that excellent question. You see, when you talk about business climate hostilities in the context of Nigeria, especially the oil and gas industry, I can tell you it has nothing to do with the petty thieves. It is a well-crafted, a well-syndicated and orchestrated criminality. That's all I can tell you for now. And you can quote me anywhere. Because before these revelations, we were made to understand that Nigeria was losing about 400,000 barrels of crude oil per day. People who don't really know what those volumes are may be thinking you're talking about some buckets of crude oil, but I can tell you the unit of crude oil measurement is called barrels, and in every barrel you have 42 gallons. In every gallon you have 4 liters. So if you multiply 400,000 by 42, you will get about 16 point something million gallons. If you multiply the 16 point something million gallons by 4, you are going to get about 60 something million liters of crude oil. 60 something million liters of crude oil is equivalent to 2,000 tankers of 33,000 liters each. In other words, what Nigeria is losing per day is equivalent to 2,000 tankers, and each of these tankers is having the capacity of like a 33,000 liter tanker. So what that simply means is this: it cannot be theft by petty thieves. It is a well-crafted and a well-orchestrated criminality, and when you have it in that capacity, some of the stakeholders that are actually supposed to act in national interest have decided to act as disloyal citizens. They have decided to act as economic saboteurs, economic vampires and marauders, and that was why you saw it succeeding.
Right. So as you were saying earlier, according to officials now of the NNPC Limited, Nigeria lost an average of 437,000 barrels of oil per day. I mean, that's between January and July 2022. So now, at the current price of oil in the international market, I want you to actually extensively quantify that loss in, maybe naira or dollar and its consequence on this country's economy.
Well, but that is something that is straight away. I mean, do the calculation, check the volumes, multiply it by the price of a barrel of crude oil in the international market, which is not less than 80 barrels, $80 per barrel, and that comes up with the value. But you see, you are just talking about the value we are losing, but I can tell you there is another aspect that so many people do not know. Right. It has damaged the image of the Nigerian oil and gas industry. It has created business climate hostilities, and it has made oil and gas investors not to see Nigeria as a very good investment haven. And even it has portrayed Nigeria as a place where oil and gas activities cannot be practiced with transparency, with decency and accountability. That's the damage.
Right, it would seem that this controversial contract that was given to government Tompolo, that everybody knows as Tompolo, is beginning to yield positive results. It's from this contract that was given to Tompolo, that is when we start having these discoveries, these oil bunkering, illegal bunkering sites discovered everywhere. How would you react to that? Would you say it's because of this particular contract that we're having these discoveries now?
Well, first of all, what I want to tell you is this. I was made to understand that those pipelines have been laid for about 9 years or thereabout. But from my experience, from my knowledge and understanding of pipelines and pipeline integrity, pipeline testing, I can tell you that those pipelines have been there for years, more than actually the 9 years. And when you look at it from that angle, that will give you an idea of the level of criminality that has been going on. So when you talk, first of all, about the contract that has been given to Tompolo, this is what I want to say. In the first place, what is happening is a clear indication that the control mechanisms have failed. And generally, when we talk about control mechanisms, they are supposed to be three. The first one should be preventive control mechanism. Then you have detective and you have corrective. Preventive simply means, in the first place, the criminals should even be prevented from coming to tamper with the pipelines. Then secondly, there should be gadgets and control equipment and surveillance equipment that will make sure, even if they are able to beat the preventive control mechanism at the point of stealing or tampering with the crude oil or gas pipelines, they should be detected. But they come in. They are not prevented from coming in, they are not detected, and even when they commit the criminality, we are not able to chase them, catch them, fingerprint, and get our crude oil. So it tells you that all the control mechanisms have failed. So the award of the contract to Tompolo technically means that those that are security agents saddled with that responsibility have technically performed, under the curve. That means they have technically underperformed, which is very, very unfortunate, because ordinarily security agents are those who are supposed to be in charge. But as far as I'm concerned, I believe in what we call local content. I believe in what we call corporate social responsibilities. And by local content and corporate social responsibilities, I simply mean all stakeholders should be carried along in safeguarding the pipelines. The communities should be carried along, the oil companies should be carried along, the security agents should be carried along. But if for whatever reason the feeling is that giving the contract to Tompolo is what is going to bring peace to that region and securing the pipeline, so be it. But what I would also want is this: it should be appreciated also that we have Tompolos across the Niger Delta. We have Tompolos in Rivers State, the Tompolos in Akwa Ibom, in Imo State, in Bayelsa State, in Edo State. Though Lagos belong to what we call Dahomey Basin, because there is crude oil in Lagos State too. But we have Tompolos across board. What I want is this: as long as there will be understanding amongst them and they will work in national interest, so be it. But I will still want security agents carried along. I will want personnel in the oil and gas companies carried along, because they also have their security and surveillance department, and the communities in totality should be carried along.
I agree with you. You know, another thing that baffles me is how exactly is this stolen crude sold on the international market without being discovered? How do you think that would even work? Because I mean, it's on the international market now. There's supposed to be some documentation that, oh, this crude is coming from Nigeria, and the government should, you know, how is it being sold on the the stolen crude now? I mean, how is it being sold on the international market?
One thing about stolen crude, people keep asking, how is it being stolen? Why is it? How is it being sold, and the rest? I mean, when you have a product that people require and you take it to the market, people will not be asking you where that product is coming from. The most important thing is you have that rice you want to sell. If the rice is attractive, who is interested in whether it came from Kaduna or Port Harcourt or Lagos or Zamfara? People want to buy that rice or that beans or that cassava. So you are talking about people that require energy. Crude oil and gas is an energy source, and a very important energy source. So in the international market, I mean, you also have people who are ready buyers without necessarily bothering about where those products are coming from. And remember, you can have so many chains before the final destination and before the final processing point. It's just like if somebody steals beans and there is so much beans. The end product for beans is probably beans on the table or akara or moi moi. It will pass through so many buyers and sellers. The end users must not necessarily know where that beans got cultivated from, as long as it is beans. So the crude oil and gas are also like that in the international market. And remember, we have criminals everywhere, whether dealing with genuine or non-genuine products. Just like cars can be stolen, sold to different levels until they get to the final users. So people don't really bother at the end user point where the product is coming from. The most important thing is the product has good quality, the product is needed, and the product needs to be consumed.
Right. We really hope the federal government is going to do necessary investigation to fish out these perpetrators and bring them to book accordingly. Anyways, oil and gas analyst Bala Zaka, thank you so much for joining us on the program today, and thank you for your insights. Well, that's how much we can take on the program today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Abisola Adebayo. Bye for now.